Hey guys, welcome back to Skylanders Ring of Heroes. Now this video is going to be one covering a question that gets asked a fair bit in Twitch chat and in YouTube chat, and that's whether you want to evolve or awaken a Skylander first. What I'll do is I'll sort of go through your different options, what I do and what my preferences are, and we'll talk about a few key units that this applies to. So first off, we'll talk in general. So like for instance, at the moment I'm farming Boomer. It's a slow grind. I'm on my 5th day of really hard farming and I'm almost there. But when we look at my Boomer, I knew when I was farming Boomer that I was going to sit there, farm him until I had him 6-starred and awaken. So with any unit that you're going to farm until you get them 6-starred and awaken, and you don't think you're going to get any use out of them at 4 or 5-star, I definitely suggest doing the 6-star before awakening. As you can see, I am getting really close to this Boomer. I've got another 12 shards. I cannot wait. But I'd suggest doing the 6-star before awakening. The reason being is that once you 6-star them, then you can have them in your team leveling up while you farm the shards to awaken them. So by the time you get the shards to awaken, you can see mine's is level 66. You've almost got the levels you need. I was actually doing some lazy farming and didn't have him in there getting experience, so he could probably be max level by the time I awaken him, or most units would be. But that's the reason for that. It's more efficient that you can level them while you're farming the shards, as opposed to the other way. If you awaken them at say 5-star, you'll then be max leveled while you're trying to get the last few shards to 6-star them, and then after you 6-star them, you've still got to level them. So then you've got to go farm something else to level them. So that's why I definitely think it is more efficient just to do the 6-star then awaken. There are other cases, however, for something like I think some people are actually doing it for Boomer as well. But the main one is Kaboom. If Kaboom is like the first unit you are farming, it will depend on what other units you do have on the decision you make in this one. But for something like Kaboom, because he's a really good AoE unit when he's awakened, and he's only single target when he's not. Well, his first skill does hit 2 targets, but you get the point. He needs that awaken to really get the AoE pressure. If you're farming a Kaboom with something like a Stealth Elf and as your main damage dealer, and it's fairly slow farming runs, you may want to consider 5-starring this guy, awakening him, and then putting some good runes on him, and then using him as your farming unit. So the scenario in which I would awaken before 6-starring is if that unit that you're farming is going to be your new farming unit and is going to speed up the rest of your farming process. So you'll get your shards faster, if that makes sense. So yes, you will then have to use that Kaboom to farm something else to get his levels up, but if he's going to be your farming unit, he's going to end up like farming another unit anyway, if that made sense. I said farming and unit a lot of times in that one just then, so I hope that makes sense. And then the other one I want to talk about is just general Nat 4s and Nat 3s that you get through like the boss stages on scenarios. I think those will end up being a case-by-case one where you look at the unit, see if you want to evolve. Something like Super Shot Stealth Elf, for instance, the Awakening skill, it reduces the mana cost of this skill by 3. It reduces it from 5 to 2. And depending on, it's going to be a case-by-case because it'll depend on what content you're going to use these guys for. Where maybe a bit more mana efficiency would be more important to you if you're using Super Shot Stealth Elf than the extra stat bonus from being 6-starred. So that's where I think those ones, because they're a really slow grind to get those shards. She's a bit different because we're getting her from the tower, but something like Freeze Blade, for instance. So he's got a really nice awakening skill. It changes his skill to be AoE and freezes all enemies as opposed to just attack 2 enemies. So it becomes a really powerful skill, this one. And if you're using him as in like a freeze team and you really want to apply those freezes, perhaps you might want to get this awakening skill instead of the stat boosts. So that's where it'll become, because you're getting 9 shards of this guy per day, it's going to take a long time to get that 300. So it's a matter of whether you want to save up and awaken him first and use it for that, or whether you want to 6-star him first, get the stat boost, and basically go without that awakening skill, which is still really nice. So those will be case-by-case instances that it'll just come down to personal preference. If you're using, I'm tipping normally damage dealers, unless the awakening skill is really vital to them doing their job, I'm tipping you're going to want them 6-starred first. For support units, you might want the awakening skill before you get the stats, if you can get them tanky enough with good enough runes. So Like I said, those will be case by case. The other one I wanted to talk about, which is probably the main one that gets asked about like a lot, is going to be the Stealth Elf. So Stealth Elf, for me personally, once again, this is personal preference as well. If it's a game in the end, it's all about enjoyment. So if you think a unit if you just really want to awaken a unit because you think it looks cool, you really want that skill that it gets or anything like that, it's up to you. But I'm just looking purely at progression efficiency. Stealth Elf, you want a 6-star before awakening, just because the stat boost you get is better from 6-star than the awakening stat boost. And also, like, the stealth enhancement on Stealth Elf giving a cleanse when she uses stealth is really nice in arena and stuff, especially when you get the bomb meta with kabooms and stuff like that. However, the most important progression to me personally is PvE progression, getting through the dungeons. So that's why I want stats, and I'm normally going to be using skill 1 and 2 of Stealth Elf, not the stealth skill. So that's not really going to bring much value to me, and if the stats aren't as good and the skill is something I won't use, then I really just want a 6-star and get the stats. Mine is at +2 at the moment, so you can see my base stats at +2 are 22.99. Can't remember exactly what it was at +0, but I'm tipping it was around that 2100 plus. And then I've got an image. I couldn't get the exact images I wanted, but I've got an image of a +5 5-star Stealth Elf, and you can see that if it got Awaken, it would be 2089 attack. And now that is a much lower attack than mine is now. However, +0 might be more similar, but you've got to remember that it's 300 shards to awaken, and that Stealth Elf is at +5. If that Stealth Elf had used shards to awaken, it would probably be at 5-star +0 still. So definitely more valuable in the shard wise to actually get your Stealth Elf to 6-star. As for the powering up, this is another one. At 6-star, powering up, normally if I'm farming a unit that's fully farmable, I'll 6-star them, and then I'll awaken them, and then I'll stop farming. The reason for this being, for instance, my Whirlwind is an exception because I didn't want to awaken my Whirlwind. However, I stopped farming as soon as I got my Whirlwind to 6-star, and you can see I've already got 111 shards. Yes, it's a 2-star, so I'm getting a lot from Wishstone summons, and that's where I've got all my Whirlwind shards. But for the Nat 3s and 4s, you've got to remember that you've also got Realm of Souls. So Nat 4s, you're only going to farm from the daily bosses, so you can just keep grinding them every day anyway. But for the farmable Nat 3s, for instance, Boomer, once I get him awakened at 6-star, I'm going to stop farming him because, you know, he might pop up in the odd, like the very odd Wishstone summon, but also in Realm of Souls because it's mainly 3-stars that get the majority of placements in Realm of Souls. So he might drop there a few times, and that's how I'll get my +1, +2, +3 through to +5 when he's at 6-star. So basically, you want the big stat boost of getting him to that evolution. You want the skill and the boost from awakening, and then you can sort of just sit back and wait for the shards to sort of come to you. Like I said, my Whirlwind, maybe when I'm kind of working on my light jetpack now, we're just sort of getting into my teams. But my Whirlwind, I might eventually awaken her once I get the shards just from doing the Wishstone summons. So that's one. On my Stealth Elf, as you can see, she's unawakened and +2. I think Stealth Elf is one I originally intended to do the same thing where I was going to awaken before getting the power-ups. However, because my B8 team, which is Stealth Elf and Whirlwind, is not 100% reliable yet when she was at +0, I decided to put those extra 2 power-ups just to get her that extra attack, but also the extra defense and HP to make the runs a little bit more reliable, and it has worked. So that's the one scenario where I might do the power-ups before awakening, is if it's a unit that you're using in something and you think it's going to nudge you over that line. Because the power-ups were a lot cheaper than awakening, I was able to get those stat boosts quicker. Obviously, they're not as valuable. However, they are quicker to get. So that was my reasoning behind doing that with the Stealth Elf, just because it gave her those extra few stats. So that's the Stealth Elf. Like I said, the plussing at 6-star is not as vital as just getting the awakening. So that's where I'd leave everything else. As for Nat 5s are basically one where, unless you're a massive whale, you're not going to stress too hard about it at the early stages of the game. And a lot of people ask about the Omni Gems. I might make a separate video talking about Omni Gems and guild requests. But for your Nat 5s, I just save the Omni Gems. We'll wait and work out which units, or if you've got a unit that you really want to do, just do it. But I'm just going to save them, work out which unit I think is going to be really vital in progression later on. I'm thinking I might even do it on a Spitfire once I summon one and get him to 6-star first. And then the Nat 5s also will come down to whether their awakening skill is vital. Something like a Robo to me is one that I think we'll really want to be awakened if we can find Robo, just because his whole passive is based on getting a chance to turn into a massive drill and deal extra damage if the enemy is under parts. And you can see this skill just fires an arrow at an enemy, and then when he's awakened, it fires. It casts parts on the enemy. It fires an explosive arrow. But yeah, it's the extra parts which gives him more chances to activate that drill, which is his big damage. So he's one that I think really needs his awakening skill to be effective. So that might be one where you're not sure whether you want to go to the 6-star or the awakening first. I'm thinking if it was me, I might awaken first, but I'm not too sure. But that's the long summary of it. And yeah, so that is pretty much it for this video. I know I dragged it on a bit at the end, but thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.